So where are you at today, and what do you see coming down the track in the future?
I think the industry is still at its infancy around green homes and its understanding. So when I'm not talking about green homes, our business, but sustainable homes. I think if anything, it's gone backwards. Consumers are challenged. From a consumer standpoint, it's clear that upwards of 80% of consumers want to live in a sustainable home, and they should be. Right, let's get that straight. They should be. We should be building homes that are sustainable, energy efficient, and healthy. We need to start thinking like that.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Lead Well, Live Well podcast. I have a great guest today who I'm really looking forward to talking with and having a conversation with. So as you know, we have deep conversations, authentic conversations with interesting leaders. And this is a very interesting individual who I've known for about a decade, and looking forward to talking to Mick Fabar, who is the founder and CEO of Green Homes. He has businesses here in Australia, New Zealand, and also now in the US as well. He's also quite a profound individual, very successful in pretty much every endeavor he's tried. So we're going to talk a little bit to him about his ability to lead himself. We're going to get into some green industry things and how to lead well and live well. Mick Fabar, great to see you.
Thanks, Mark. Pressure's on.
Pressure is on, man. Like, it's high performance time. Kermit the Frog said it's not easy being green. Is that true?
It hasn't been easy over the years. It's quite enjoyable, and but it's not easy.
For sure.
Yep. It's getting easier.
It's a fascinating space to be in. We're going to talk a bit more about the green industry and what you're doing as far as Green Homes, which is your business. But I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about you yourself and some of the other things that you've achieved. There's not too many people with Guinness World Records for speed boxing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, way back when, early 2000s, an opportunity presented itself where I was invited to partake in an event that then became a chase and a bit of an obsession over the next 10 years. And I was just at the right point in my life. I needed something to fulfill a hole that had been left from being an athlete.
Yeah.
And it was a very enjoyable, 12 years of chasing greatness and putting my name in the history books.
So the numbers, what are the numbers? Was the number of the most?
So I held 4 world records, still hold 1 at the moment. All for speed punching. The numbers were 548 punches in 1 minute, 60 seconds. So just over 9 per second. So I broke that record a couple of times.
9 per second.
Yep. And then I held the single most amount of punches in 1 minute. So one hand, from a boxing sense, they're called jabs, at 401. And I still hold the world speedball record. So the speedball that hangs from the ceiling, I still hold that record today. I've held that for 11 years. So there's been, my understanding is there's been quite a few attempts at that record, and I'm still lucky enough to hold that. I think the challenge for competitors in that space is that the record is probably at its maximum because of the equipment. So the equipment just necessarily can't go any faster, and I was lucky enough to be able to, on the day, get over a period of time, of course, create the discipline that we were able to get the number of punches on the speedball that was at the maximum of the equipment. So breaking that is going to be quite difficult, I think. So not because of me, because of the equipment.
Yeah, I think it has very little to do with luck, just between you and me. But that's a real achievement to be able to do that, because you lost it at one stage, didn't you, to someone else?
It was there was a gentleman in the UK that's quite a prolific athlete, Paddy Doyle, and he held the 1 minute punch record for quite some years. And I broke it. He set it at 428. I broke it at 432. And then he reclaimed it at 461, and then I reset it at 528, and then that record was retired. So there's all sorts of different disciplines now, but originally back in the early 2000s, it was just one discipline. which meant that the hand speed was measured. 100% of the punches had to land. They had to travel 70% of your arm, your reach, and we chased it, and it kept moving. And there was a guy in the US that was having a bit of a crack, and it was infectious, and it was something that I enjoyed doing. We used the events to raise money for charity, which was also something that was quite enjoyable.
Awesome.
But yeah, it was out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. And
so what did you physically do to go from, okay, so you've got the record, Paddy's gone and got it back, and then you managed to break it again. How did you approach that challenge?
So it's an interesting story, because when I first looked at the opportunity, when the opportunity was first presented to me, the record was sub 400, and before Paddy had reset it at 428, and it didn't look that difficult. And after 6 months, I'd been a boxer all of my life since I was a young boy, so the punching drills were quite ingrained in me, but the speed didn't look overly difficult to me, and so no problem. Let's have a crack at that. I did 6 months of intensive training with my team, and our first physical timed hit out, where we were filmed, and it was all done properly through the Guinness World Record team. I was sub 300.
Yep,
I was devastated.
Yeah,
it was a walk away moment. It was like, we're never going to get there. I just don't have the muscle fibers to be able to create the speed. I made a decision at that point in time that at that very moment, I remember making the decision that I wanted the world record that bad, and you have to want it that bad to be able to do what I needed to do, which meant 2 sessions a day, 4 hours a day, just I reconfigured the way that my muscles worked in my body. Went to Sydney Uni to the biomechanics lab, worked with the lab technicians there, and the scientists about how we could generate speed. So and on the day, which was a live event, the record was 428 by the time that my attempt was sanctioned, and at capacity I threw 432. So we're talking 4 punches.
Yeah.
And a minute, 60 seconds is a long time. It's like the human body can only hold maximum exertion between 9 and 12 seconds. So you've got to find a really it's like trying to sprint an 800.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to find that zone and that rhythm, and then you've got to be able to hold that and breathe and operate for 60 seconds. 60 seconds seems like a short time, but it's a long time when you're at maximum capacity.
Yeah.
So then there's 432, and then Paddy got it back, pretty much immediately. I only held it for 2 months, and he got it back at a sanctioned event in London. And then again, I wanted it. For me personally, I just hadn't had the time to soak up owning that record.
Yeah.
So I wanted it back pretty badly.
Yeah.
And I spent 12 months training with the team at Sydney Uni and my team, and it's just about just doing things differently. We were doing all sorts of different things to make my muscles work differently.
Yeah.
And then I threw 528.
Is it like Tiger Woods came to reconstruct his swing?
Yeah, because of injuries, and that's exactly what had to happen. So generating that sort of speed, I think when I started the journey,
yeah,
my hand speed, which I thought was fast at the time, was pretty average really for an athlete. Hand speed sits somewhere between 8 and 9 meters per second, which is pretty average. And when I finished those 12 years of doing those events, my hand speed was 19.8 meters per second. So,
wow. Okay.
But it took a lot of work, but my feedback is that really anyone could do it. It's just have you got the ability or the need to do it, and the desire to do it, that requires the 4 or 5 hours a day in, day out to do it. We could argue that there's genetics or all sorts of things involved. There's not really. It's just I put the time in. I wanted the outcome more than I wanted anything else at the time, and I did whatever I needed to do to get it done.
Yeah. So that discipline and getting people in who are experts to sort of help you reconstruct, and then that consistency over time seems to have got you, and the passion.
Absolutely. You've got to be passionate about it.
Yep.
I think with anything that you're doing to that, if that requires that sort of commitment. If you're not passionate, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be a subpar result, right? You've got to surround yourself with experts.
Totally.
You've got to get the experts in. I would never have got there without the experts. I had some great trainers in my team, and everyone from trainers, nutritionists, and the guys at the biomechanics lab at Sydney Uni, just making small changes to increase speed, generate speed from the human body. If you don't understand that stuff, and you don't have the people that can understand that stuff, it was never going to happen. So, and again, that just came with commitment. I didn't live in Sydney at the time. I lived 3 hours away, so it required travel and commitment. And I had wonderful family, that very understanding, wonderful young family at the time. 3 young kids under 6. Very understanding wife that allowed me to do 4 o'clock sessions and then sessions after work and recovery sessions. And so, it was as much their journey as it was mine. We did it together. So
awesome.
It was great.
So good. Did you ever meet Paddy?
No, we've talked on the phone a few times and had a couple of Zoom meetings, and he's now a retired athlete just like me. So, but yeah, it was just a wonderful rivalry.
To catch up one day.
Yeah, could share some stories. I mean, he's got some terrific world records. He's held the most amount of push-ups in a minute, most amount of push-ups in 24 hours, most amount of burpees. He's just a phenomenal endurance athlete. So way beyond the discipline that I focused on. He's just across. He was crowned the world's most fittest man at one point. So
and he took his crown.
Yeah, well, in one discipline. Yeah, in one discipline.
I love it. Talking about passion, a passion that you and I both share is anything that's loud and goes fast. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your Supernats story? Because you have had an extraordinary amount of success in that completely different arena around Supernats and building custom cars.
So, look, I'm a bit of a car freak. I was brought up I fell in love with cars when I was young. So from muscle cars to hot rods to exotic cars, it's just a passion. And I went to some events my father took me to some events when I was in my late teens after he'd given me his car, which was an old Ford Fairlane, original Fairlane, one owner Fairlane. And it just went from there. I became so passionate, obsessed with succeeding in that arena. So in the show car arena and the custom car arena and that space, we've had a long history with the Australian scene. It's a real culture. We've built 3 cars that have won Maguire's MotorEx, which is the biggest accolade that you can win in Australia in that scene. So we've had 3 MotorEx champions, championship winning cars, and the Supernats we've won. We're one of the only cars to win what they call the Golden Crown, which was we won the Top Judge Elite People's Choice Grand Champion and Street Machine of the Year all in 1 year. So
is that the Z-Rod?
That was Z-Rod. So we built a 1967 XR Falcon. We rebuilt it out of recycled material, changed the engine and running gear to a biodiesel running gear, and we did that in 2013, and that was the only year that one car's won all of the awards in one go in one season. So I've got a great group of mates that have shared that journey with me for the last 20 years, that have helped me build the cars, and so it's been a real passion, and I've passed that passion on to my son now, so who's also building a car, and what I like about that industry is that there's a lot of experts, geniuses in that industry that you wouldn't realise walking past them in the street. Manufacturers, fabricators, painters, trimmers, like just wonderfully talented people that just operate in that arena, and it can be addictive, but it stops you spending money on anything else.
Yeah, I've seen some of the cars. I mean, Raw is still one of my favourite ones, and Z-Rod's just an inspiration for that whole area. But it's a craft, isn't it? I mean, the people that you've got around you have just got a level of craft that's sadly, I think, declining.
Yeah, it is, and it's hard for for people to build cars, and you can't do it all yourself, right? So I'm not a fabricator, and I'm not a painter, and I'm not a trimmer. But as most car builders and hobbyists, putting together, pulling apart, and conceiving the idea. And I think where my success come from is that all of my 3 championship-winning cars or projects I had the vision clear at the beginning, very, very clear. So we didn't sort of go down one road and then change another. I knew what the paint colour was going to be, what the wheel and tyre size were going to be, what suspension we wanted, what engine we wanted, what horsepower we needed. I knew from back to front what was required. And when you've got that level of vision and planning, then the execution just becomes getting the right people. Yep. But you're right, the right people.
That's a great insight.
Are difficult to find. Well, I think it applies to anything, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be able to see the end game.
Totally.
If you can't see the end game, it makes it hard to commit.
Definitely.
And if you and in that arena or Guinness World Record arena, whatever the arena is, the commitment level to get to that is extreme. Yeah. And if you don't have an end vision, a clear end vision, an end game clear on the wall, in your mind, it's hard to make that commitment and continue the discipline that's required.
Love that.
I think that's part of the success for those two. For me, it's just I've been able to create the end vision, which has helped me then just like commit to the discipline that's needed to get there.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. That clarity of vision makes such a difference. It becomes the defining outcome, the sense of purpose around that as well. If I think you and I have worked together a lot in the green homes business, I think you've got a lot of clarity around that as well. I remember a conversation a long time ago where you talked about wanting to be the best green builders in the world. And then last year we managed to get the Global Home of the Year, which was an extraordinary achievement for a little company down here in good old Australia, particularly with the Americans. They don't give accolades outside their boundaries very often. Do you want to tell us a bit about that story?
Yeah, I think it just comes back to vision again. You asked me in 2014. I remember it clearly at one of our board meetings. You said, let's define where we want to be and what the vision is. And one of the 3 things that we put up on the wall was the number 1 builder in the world. There's arguments for and discussion all day on what determines the number 1 builder in the world. For me, it was very clear. We wanted to be able to build the best house in the world. We didn't want to. I don't think that for us, the number 1 builder in the world or being the best builder in the world doesn't necessarily mean you're building the most amount of homes or the cheapest homes, or the most expensive homes. But in our space, for me, it means that you're building the most efficient homes. That meet those criteria: sustainability, affordability, low carbon, all of those things. So in 2014, in our one of our planning meetings, we put that up on the wall, and it's been on my wall ever since. And in 2023, we won Global Home of the Year for one of our homes. So that was in front of me every day, and that was constantly on our vision map and constantly on my whiteboard in my office. And then there's some science to be said for if you put it in front of you and you make that vision clear and you commit to it, that it will come off. Well, for us, Global Home of the Year just cemented that number 1 position of best builder. And from a business perspective, we can make that claim forever. We achieved that. So there's no denying it. It was, and you're right. It's even more difficult to get that award in America, considering it was an Australian home, first time ever in the history of those awards that a non-American home project has won that award. So fairly excited at the time and chuffed and honoured and proud of our achievement in that space.
No, it's an extraordinary achievement.
Yeah.
It's next level. So we talked about your success, physically, then your passion around cars, and then what you've done with Green Homes, building the business out. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But you've been able to achieve extraordinary success on a global scale in very, very different disciplines. Where does that come from? Where does that level of clarity and discipline, and what is it in your world that do you think that's actually helped shape you to be able to do that?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know anything different. But I think for me personally, I've always had a desire to succeed.
Yep.
So with anything that I did, certainly I didn't have that desire when I was at school. So I was out of school when I was 15 and straight into a carpentry apprenticeship. But and I wasn't the best carpentry apprentice either. I wasn't committed like I expect. Now we talk about carpentry apprentices now. I expect them to be committed, and my son's just starting his journey, and we talk about commitment and discipline quite frequently. I think I drive him crazy with that, and both my daughters are the same. But I know I wasn't that then. But somewhere along the way, I think it was really with my sport. I realised that if you weren't committed and you didn't have the end goal clearly in mind, that it wasn't going to happen for you. And we think about all these, or for me, I think about all the superstar athletes or superstar business people or just successful people generally. And I think there's a perception that they're lucky or it just happens for them, or the family had money so they could start their business at the top instead of climbing the ladder, or they were naturally gifted, or genetics played a major role. I don't think any of that's right. I think what it comes down to is the clarity of the individual to be able to create the dream, visualise the dream, and then make it happen.
Yeah.
And for some people it happens quickly, and for some people it takes a long time. And but the journey can be long, and it takes discipline. One thing that I think that I've been gifted with is discipline. I would front up every day until I'm not a quitter. So and there's many people that aren't quitters. I've just been, and there's probably a few times when I probably should have let stuff go. But I think the determination to succeed on clear vision has been what developed in me in my 20s, I think. Yep. Desire to succeed. I just came from a working class family. I've had to work for everything that I've got, like most people. I haven't had any handouts, haven't any leg ups, but my desire to get to achieve our end vision, that's my working group, my family's group, is the most important thing in my mind.
Awesome. Was your dad a good representation of hard work, intelligence for you?
He was a extraordinary example of hard work. I grew up with a father that had 4 jobs. He was a butcher by trade. He was butchering and working in hotels and driving taxis, and he just always had a job. Never missed a Saturday sport morning, but he was always working. Work while I was at school, and then come home for dinner and go to work at night. And he came from a low socioeconomic family, and sort of I grew up in a middle class family, which was purely because of his hard work.
Yep.
So I left school at 14 and started a butchering apprenticeship. That traditional sort of 60s Australian transition that was quite common. So I think the work ethic I definitely got from him.
Love it. Well, I very much admire you, Mick, because as you know, you're the most resilient person that I think I've ever met. We've been through some battles and some difficult grounds and seen a chunk of success as well. So congratulations, man, for all those things that you have achieved. It's just nice occasionally just to stop and go, hang on. While you're pursuing the next one, it's like we've actually achieved some amazing things.
It's important to look back and recognise and have some gratitude personally, and with your network, with your closed group. I think there's a challenge in Australia, right? I think we've Australians generally, our culture is to pull people down. We don't celebrate individual success or company success like they do in other countries that we're operating in, which is one of the biggest things that I've noticed. So we certainly don't celebrate success in Australia. In Australia, people like blowing other people's candles out. It's against the norm to look back and congratulate yourself on some of these things. So that's I've very much tried to adopt the thinking that let's not blow anyone's candle out.
Yeah.
Like blowing someone else's candle out isn't going to make my candle burn any brighter. We need everyone's candle to burn bright.
Absolutely.
So I think there's some thinking in that's helped us just stayed focused on what we're doing as well.
Love that. So that, you talked a lot about the sense of vision, purpose, passion, discipline, and the resilience and the consistency is probably the other thing that I see in you is you turn up every day and you're consistent and you do a whole bunch of things that actually help you achieve what it is that you're aiming for, and you have very clear set of outcomes that you're aiming for. I think those two things together and the personal discipline of turning up have made a massive difference. A little bit about green homes. So how did you did your butcher's apprenticeship? Next thing I know,
Carpentry apprenticeship.
Then a butchery first, then
No. My father was butcher.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're not a butcher as well.
No.
Just you haven't lived if you're not a butcher.
Jeez, how did that happen?
So you did your carpentry and you got into the whole building sphere. What was the switch? How did you get into the energy efficiency and starting green homes?
So my journey was very traditional. Left school, did a carpentry apprenticeship, was semi-committed to that. I look back on my commitment to that, and I think about the bosses that trained me and thought, I really didn't learn anything because of my own commitment until my second half of my apprenticeship, and then I really learnt the most the 2 years that straight after my apprenticeship, where I worked for my uncle, who was a very successful house builder, and he probably taught me the most. But then I started my own business, like most carpenters do. I got my builder's license. I was a fully qualified builder by the time I was 21, which is quite difficult to do today.
Yeah.
But that's how it was in the 90s. That was the way that it worked. And then I started building homes, and my traditional journey was I lived in regional New South Wales, Orange, where I still live with my family today. Kids have left home, as you know, but or leaving home. So
recent experience.
Yeah, it's still there with my wife Sophie. But so I started building and building homes and just building normal homes, and it became, as any businessman, I wanted to build good homes and great homes, and I wanted to have happy clients. I got a lot of enjoyment out of having happy clients and handing homes over. It was one of the things that I liked about building homes. I got a sense of satisfaction about creating something from nothing. So we built up a regional building business, and it was quite a strong business. Late 90s, early 2000s, I had a good team, good administration team, and a good contractor team. And I transitioned from being on the tools, to enough scale to be off the tools, transition to that business sense. I think one of the things, the problems in the industry today, and I know we're not talking about problems, but one of the challenges and problems that's ongoing is there's no builders transition from trade operators, swinging hammers and putting buildings together, into business people with no training. There's no training for that.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest problems in the industry at the moment, and it has been for a long time, but we can talk about that later. But so I transitioned into operating a building business and building, doing 20 projects or so a year. So quite a successful business, and then didn't have any vision of doing anything else. I was just building normal homes and normal commercial work and industrial work, like a lot of regional builders do. We sort of had multiple projects on at any one time. There seemed to be an endless supply of projects and opportunities. We did a little bit of development ourselves, so a few spec homes and small subdivisions and stuff like that. All very traditional for most builders that have grown their business. That's a very normal trajectory. And then in Orange, we've got Newcrest Gold Mine, which opened or went into production. So operation went from construction phase, which was a 10-year phase, into operation producing gold in about early 2000s, 2004, 2003. And in came all the big guys into town. So before that time, Orange was all the homes being built by, local builders, of similar size to myself, larger and smaller. And the work was very balanced, and it was its own eco environment, like most regional centres are.
Yeah.
And when the big guys came in, so within 1 year we had 5 new display homes built by national companies, and I think it was 2004 or 2005 we signed 2 residential contracts, and they were a fight. They were a fight to win. And, it was like every other builder, I've got the best quality and the best price. Why aren't people signing with me? Why aren't we getting people walking through the door? and I realised that we had competitors that were national competitors were actually they were more expensive, but people were still signing with them, and I couldn't work out I didn't understand that consumer journey like I do today. Anyway, we were building 2 display homes with a heap of other builders in a street, in a new subdivision, to cope with the growth of Orange, between the predicted growth, which happened between 2005 and 2012. And so Orange went from turning out 280, 300 homes a year, everyone together, like growth-wise, to 600 at its peak. We were building 2 display homes in a display home street, and everyone was doing the same thing. And it was we'd already had the designs completed, and it was my wife and my mother-in-law that said, "Why don't you do something green?" And I went, "Well, no. Expensive and difficult. I'm not
You
doing that."
married well, Mick, I have to say.
I did marry well. I did marry well.
So they said, why not green?
Yeah, my mother-in-law's and my father-in-law very, I wouldn't say alternate, but environmentally focused and sensible.
Yep.
So right at the last minute, I know that I sat down with Sophie, and we were sort of sitting in the office and with some other senior people in the business, saying how we're going to build something the same as, it might be slightly different, but the same as the 20 other builders in the street. And we're just going to hope that people like our design, and we're going to say the same as everyone else. We've got the best quality and the best price. We'll give away a free kitchen or a car or furniture for a home. And I just, it dawned on me that was just madness.
Yeah,
it was just a race to the bottom. We were already suffering from pricing issues and competition, and I wasn't green in any sense. And I had the perception, like that still exists today, that building sustainably, building a green home, building a healthy home is more expensive and it's difficult. So regardless, obviously, I took on board the thinking that we should be different. And we went back to the drawing board before we put the submission in for the 2 homes, and redesigned the homes completely from scratch, created 2 new designs, and with the tools at the time that were available, modelled the homes to the best of our ability. And there was really no green certification, but we really focused on, okay, what are the green principles and how do we employ them into these projects? Solar passiveness, air leakage, energy leakage, double glazing in our climate was important. So we did a lot of research, did a lot of reading. We built 2 homes in 2005 and 2 display homes and opened those homes. And, we didn't have a team, like a skilled sales team. It was myself and my mother and father-in-law used to open them every Saturday. And we were learning about sustainability, right? But we put a family in of 4 in 1 after the first 6 months and monitored the energy use and with what was available then, energy use, water use, internal temperatures, external temperatures, and monitored those on a spreadsheet over a 12-month period to work out, how are these homes really efficient? The other thing that we did was when we finished the projects, when we did the cost tally of the projects, it was quite profound that the actual upgrade in green didn't cost any more money per square metre.
Yeah.
Other than the upgrades in the polished concrete floor or the kitchen bench tops, or the upgrades because of the stuff that we fitted the homes out with, which had no bearing on sustainability. The actual creating the sustainable home was no greater cost per square metre. I still remember the day that I remember saying to our accountant that was doing the cost analysis on this, you've missed something.
Yeah.
It can't be right. I was expecting it to cost 20% more, and it just wasn't there. We stripped it back 3 different ways from Sunday. The costs were no more greater per square metre, and it dawned on me that we were our thinking was broken, whether it's from the 70s or the 60s or the 50s or whatever, when it did cost more to build a sustainable home because you had to find recycled materials and all of those things, and we weren't building solar passively. It dawned on me that when we were looking at the data from the home that was in operation, the energy reductions were significant. They were like upwards of 70%. Before we even talk about where the energy comes from, they both had solar panels, but before we even talk about that, the home itself had reduced the energy by between 60 and 70% at the time was what we were estimating.
Yeah.
And the data was clear. And there was no extra cost per square metre. I dived into it like it was like, well, that's what we have to do.
There's still that perception, isn't there, that if you build green, it's going to cost you a lot more.
Oh, it's greater today than it's ever been.
I think it's one of the successes of green homes is once people actually understand and they engage with the brand, they realise that actually, no, you can get an energy efficient outcome at a normal kind of build price. Small premium in there, but other than that, it's not a whole different level of cost involved. And now that we're ISO accredited as well, that's all.
I think that fundamentally our thinking in the building industry or in the consumer industry around the sustainable green home space is completely broken.
Yeah.
And it's flawed with false information.
Yeah.
Whether that information was false 50 years ago, is up for debate. But
sure.
Today it's flawed. So what we did was then just by default, we weren't even trying to do this, but we developed a brand. We developed a reputation for building just sustainable homes, and we said, right, okay, we're going to do commercial work, we're going to do industrial work, and our residential work, we're going to specialise in building sustainable homes. And the very next year we were back at we were booked out. We've been booked out ever since. There was a couple of really defining moments that I didn't realise how many people. This is back in 2006 and mid 2000s. How many people wanted an energy efficient, sustainable home, and were willing to pay more for them? They just couldn't get them.
Yeah.
I was also completely perplexed that there seemed to be no building experts that actually built them. There was a lot of people in the space, and still is today, academically, that talk about energy reduction and energy use and different products, but actually. The real value is making sure the design is right for the site, and then the application of that design, making sure it's put together properly. If you get those things right, it's a no-brainer. You can build a home that is super efficient without any uplifting cost. Now, of course, uplifts around bench tops and additional upgrades, they cost more money. But
makes sense.
That does make sense. But so to get home efficient, it's not that hard.
So coming back to you've now got a Green Homes, the brand, you've got a clear point of difference. You've worked out that you can actually build at a price-effective, market-driven access point for most people. I think the insight around consumers is really interesting too, because that's still today. There's so many consumers who want, industry is not providing, which is probably one of the reasons we have the success we have. So you end up getting a whole bunch of franchise partners in Australia. Do you want to talk a little bit about that journey, and then we'll go to where we are at today?
Well, before we even got there, we didn't envisage a franchise at all. It wasn't even on the agenda. Actually, I was totally against it. I'd been approached by franchise companies before to take on their brand in Orange, and there was no way we were going to do that. We won some major industry awards with the homes that we'd built. And every time I got interviewed, I said the same thing as I just said then. They don't cost any more per square metre to build. Yep. If you know what you're doing, they don't cost any more per square metre. It's pretty simple, really. There's fundamental things that you've got to achieve. And when you understand those, you get them right in the design, you get them right in the application, you'll end up with a sustainable home. It's pretty simple. And as we kept winning awards from Landcare awards to industry awards in arenas that we weren't supposed to win in. So it was we were very early to the space, and as in very early to the green home space from a volume standpoint, and the message started getting out in the media, and I started getting phone calls and emails and even letters from people all over Australia saying, I wanted to build a sustainable home. Can you help me? I can't find a builder, or can you help me with the design, or what should I do in this climate zone? And I was going to say I felt responsible to respond to those people, but I actually enjoyed helping the people, to be honest. I got a sense of worth helping those people. And I can remember sitting at the office at 6:30 at night or 7 o'clock, talking to a lady in Perth that was or Western Australia that was trying to get a sustainable home planned and built, and she was having trouble with council, and they wouldn't let her put the windows where they needed to be, and so forth. And I was trying to give her some advice, and I remember thinking, right, I've got my wife's at home, I've got 3 young kids, like I need to be home and fulfilling my dad duties, and I'm here at the office at 7 o'clock at night helping someone on the other side of Australia. Yeah. And you'd think that's where the franchise opportunity was born, or the franchise thinking. It wasn't. What happened was we wrote an ebook. I wrote all the things that I constantly talked about. I put into an ebook, which is about 30 pages long, and called it Idiot's Guide on How to Build a Green Home. That's a true story.
Right. And
we started a website called Green Homes, very basic platform, and we were selling that ebook for $19.95. And I remember saying to Sophie and the rest of the team, in the next couple of years, people will catch up. This will be good. If we sell a few, it'll pay for the Christmas party at the end of the year type thinking.
Yeah.
Ebook went well, brand grew, and then by 2012 we'd gone right through a whole franchise journey of operating a franchise. And for me, once I looked at franchising as a way of, because then we started getting builders calling us saying, can you help me? I want to do this or I want to do that. So that's how the franchising journey started. It seemed like a no-brainer, and it occurred to me that franchising is all about partnerships. So as an independent builder, you've either got to develop these things yourself, a set of range of designs, point of difference, value proposition, marketing plans, all that, or you can do that yourself, and you're partnering with external parties. You're still partnering with them. You're still paying them a fee to do a job, our option was, and what I liked about franchising, why I fell in love with that business model is you can join a company like Green Homes, secure exclusive rights for a brand, and all of that's done for you as part of the royalties that you pay out of a home that you would be paying normally to consultants with no accountability. Yeah. So I really like that model. But, so when I fell in love with the model, then it grew very quickly, and we had significant coverage across Australia in sort of the first 4 years.
Yeah, significant. And then opened up in New Zealand. I mean, obviously, a bit of a learning curve on how to run a franchise well. That's all systematized, and I know you grew the online presence really, really well. I mean, extraordinary amount of volume that you have through. Opened up in New Zealand. And now we've wandered off to the US and doing some things over there as well.
Yep.
So where are you at today, and what do you see coming down the track in the future?
I think the industry's still at its infancy around green homes and its understanding. So when I'm not talking about green homes, our business, but sustainable homes. I think if anything, it's gone backwards. Consumers are challenged. From a consumer standpoint, it's clear that upwards of 80% of consumers want to live in a sustainable home, and they should be. Right, let's get that straight. They should be. We should be building homes that are sustainable, energy efficient, and healthy. We need to start thinking like that, and I'm very passionate about that. And that's not something that is in our culture either here in New Zealand or in the US. So, and when it's not costly, we need to start thinking our homes need to do more than just keep the water off our head. Right, we've got to think about internal spaces, energy leakage, the appliances that we put in. We've got to start thinking about, a design that you build in Hobart, you can't build in Perth and Cairns. That's a different design. Or changes have got to be made to that design to make that home perform better. It doesn't need to cost any more money, but we've got to make changes to that design in different climate zones to help it perform, or different locations depending on the orientation. So it frustrates me. We've got to think like that. We've got an obligation to think like that. We know that consumers across Australia, New Zealand, and the US, in their abundance, the numbers are off the charts. The people that want energy efficient homes, but they still think that because of the industry, because of the lack of knowledge in the industry and the false information, that they're expensive and they're difficult. So that's frustrating. But where I'm at right now and where I see the industry going is, post-COVID, I think the industry's completely changed. Like most industries. So COVID put a lot of pressure on builders that weren't operating at, be careful of the words here because all builders are trying. But
Sure.
there's good operators and there's average operators. And if you're an average operator in the building industry, you're out of business quickly.
Yeah.
You've got to have good people, you've got to have good systems, you've got to have good financial management, you've got good supplies, you've got to have good relationships. Everything's got to be at the top of its tree to give you a shot at being successful, running a successful building business.
Yeah.
And you need training.
That's why you feel like, I guess the obvious question is, why would a builder come in to green homes?
Well, I think builders have got to be smart. You know, I think the days, and it sounds like, you know, I've completely shifted to another camp, and I've just, in my own journey, I've woken up. As an independent builder today, your days are numbered. It's just not the way that consumers shop. It's unless you're prepared to invest millions of dollars into your business, creating a value proposition and building the systems that you need, which cost exorbitant amount of money, and then you just can't stay relevant.
Exactly.
So once independent builders, the journey is once independent builders build for their circle of influence, so their mother's next door neighbour and their wife's auntie and that sort of circle of influence, when they're competing for mum and dad on the street, unless they've got significant value proposition, systems and support, they're never going to get that client to even talk to them.
Yeah.
So there's some, and builders don't realise that. They still operate on a referral type basis, you know, the next job will come. And that's where we end up with do that job to pay for that job. And, you know, it's a spiral, right? They find it hard to scale. Yeah. And the industry, unfortunately, both here in New Zealand and in the US, is geared to help the big guys get bigger and the small guys to get out of the game because they're the ones that deliver the risk. So if you want to build for consumers, it's different if you're just building your own spec homes and flipping them, and that's a whole different ballgame. But still should be building sustainable homes. But if you want to build for consumers, you know, upwards of 67% of consumers pick the builder they're going to build with before they make their first inquiry.
Wow. Okay.
So if you don't have a good online piece, you're not even in the game. Consumers want a local builder with local trades, but they want support by national companies. That's what they want. That's also clear. I'm not making that stuff up.
Yeah,
that's clear. So when we've got independent builders that build this is the world we live in today. I talk to builders all the time. We've got independent builders that have just spent, you know, $15,000 on their website, and they're spending, you know, $1,000 a month marketing that website. They might as well be donating that money to charity. Their competitors, Green Homes and all of the other national builders, the top 20 builders have got $1 million websites.
Yep.
They're spending hundreds of thousands a month on SEO and marketing campaigns to start conversations with consumers.
Yeah.
And the independent guy just can't even get in the game. It's like turning up to an F1 race in a Hyundai. It's just not going to happen.
No.
You know, they don't know that though. And they spend all this money, time and effort and they build their dreams on it. It frustrates me.
Yeah.
And then they deliver a product that's not sustainable, that's completely at the other end of the spectrum and expect to make sales. Yeah. Not going to happen. And that's why we've got independent builders struggling and can't get scale.
And you saw that in your own start on this journey, didn't you?
Absolutely.
You said, like, we're just going to be the same as everyone else, competing on price. And builders often compete on price and then go broke.
That's right.
Which is a tragedy.
And we've done
involved.
that. We've done that. We've built homes and lost money.
Yeah.
We've built homes and spent 9 months building a home. Go right. We just lost $50,000 on that home.
Yeah.
You know?
There's also, I think, the advantage of being in a space that is consumers are very aware of and growing. Like the ability to be able to build an energy efficient home. The demand for those things is only going to get better, and we own that space as far as the online conversation is concerned. And so that deal flow is envious, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's been a timing issue, and I also think that through the years of experience has put us in a space where we're within the industry. Certainly with the DOE in the US and other organisations that we're a part of, they recognise that 20 years and thousands of green homes that we've built, these guys must know what they're doing. Yep. They're still here, they're still relevant, they're still, they must know what they're doing. They've won a list of awards, and I think in the green space, we're as good as it gets.
Yeah.
I can say that confidently because there's no one else doing it.
No.
I don't have to worry about the other 5 builders that might be offended by that comment. There's no one doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. This is what we do.
Yeah.
It's not overly difficult. We've built a brand and systems and support around that. I think the most challenging thing in that space is that the consumers are already there, the product partners are already there, and we're there. Is the red tape that's in the industry, which is the other problem for all builders, independents and large. I mean, the red tape. Australia's worse than New Zealand and America, significantly worse. But the red tape in running a building business is just extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's just...
I'm going to come back. I think I'll come back to that because I think we should do a bit of a deeper dive onto the industry itself. So we'll come back to that. Just while we're on builders and anyone who might be interested in coming in to the system, they obviously get a lot of demand. So lead generation from the websites. The sort of banking our reputation, IP, and the logistics of how to actually physically do this in a way that's ISO regulated. And they've got a great point of difference and a lot of consumers who want the product. What else do they get coming in?
I think product partner relationships are important. So aligned with product partners that are of the same thinking. I think the level of difference between their competitors is important. We don't usually, because of consumers, we're not usually pricing against other builders. We're certainly still pricing against valuations and banks and loan limits and all that sort of stuff. Budgets are always a governing factor, but I don't think we're on a whole. I would say that 95% of our projects are not being checked against 4 other builders because those 4 builders aren't delivering the same product. So consumers are a lot further in front in this space than builders recognise.
Absolutely.
They're way ahead of the game. And that's what we found out when we went through it, and especially when we went to the US, we had that opportunity and we just couldn't turn away from that because it was so compelling.
Yeah.
The consumers are already there. Product partners now, all product partners are on a sustainable journey. All product manufacturers are on a sustainable journey. Now, some greater than others, obviously. Some are completely recycled and sustainable products, and some have just got recycled part of their factory support system, or some are using renewable energy. But everyone's on the same journey, and at different levels. So we've got consumers and we've got the product partners, and the only way that a house can be built is that if a builder makes it happen.
Yeah.
So he's got to be the two that put those things together.
Yeah.
For builders coming in, there's no doubt that if you want to spend millions of dollars and take the risk, you could build your own sustainable brand and do 100 sustainable designs and put it all together yourself. But there's a level of risk mitigation with the history of this brand.
Totally.
We've been around for a long time. We've got a lot of credibility. We've got a lot of partnerships. Whether it's from financial institutions, lending institutions, investors, national sales representatives, that all of that stuff is important when you want a consumer to have trust and sign a contract with you.
Yeah.
And that just can't be replicated.
No. Well, it takes 10, 20 years to do it.
That's right. It takes a long time to do it.
Indeed. They also get some system support too, as far as the function, the
Systems,
green cloud.
Everything.
Yep.
Market, everything that you need to run a building business, a green building business, everything that you need, commercial training, green training, support. And as a franchisee, they really, I think of the company as like a public group. Each franchisee they're the owners of the brand, and the team at head office and all the external team work for those guys. Their job, the head office team's or management team's job is to make sure that the individual franchisee is being supported, and has got a good pipeline, and we only get paid when they get paid, right? That's how we make our money, out of a royalty payment, rather than paying a retainer every month to a series of consultants, marketing and SEO guys and designers and drafters. They're just paying a royalty, right? So if they're not successful, we're not successful. So I think that's skin in the game.
Great model.
I've said to a couple of builders, if I was visualising the opportunity and you were looking at 2 parallel worlds, I said, in one world, yourself and your wife are in a raft, whitewater rafting, and you're going down the rapids and there's 10 people on the bank walking on the bank with you, and you're paying all of those people. And you've got a marketer and a designer and a website manager, and and depending on the size of your business, you're paying different amounts because you're different quantity of work, but you're still paying them.
Sure.
Regardless of the outcome, you're paying them. You've got to have that. You can't do it yourself. Builders need to be in relationships.
Yeah.
In our model, in the franchise model, we're all in the boat with you. We're all in the boat. There's 10 people in the boat, all navigating the white water to get to whatever smooth water is available. So I like that model.
It's a great model.
And I like that vision that we're all in it together.
Yeah.
I know the other model where the husband and wife, or the builder is doing, the independent builder. They think they're in a boat with all these other people, but the reality is they're just paying those other people to do a job. And the second that they don't pay them, those people leave the table.
Yep.
And there's not often is there deliverables that are controllable by the builder. So I much prefer the model where we're all in the boat together. Everyone's got their own KPIs, and everyone makes money together.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Everyone makes
Love
money
it.
together.
That's good. Awesome. So if you're a builder and you're interested in this conversation, what's the best way to connect?
Just give head office a ring. We've got a franchise information on our website. You can book a meeting at one of our display homes. And I have all the first discussions with builders to help them on the journey. And I'm happy to share the information. And if it's not the right fit for them and it's not the right fit for us, it's not the right fit. It's got to be the right fit for both parties.
Sure.
But if there's builders out there that want to build green and scale their business and be relevant,
website address
www.greenhomesaustralia.com.
Great.
Awesome.
All right. So what's in the future for green homes? I know we're starting to get down into the whole bigger green communities, international expansion to the US, and what's happened in New Zealand, where it's been a very successful brand over there. What's next for green homes?
I think one of the challenges and what we've been able to do, from a board level and management level, which you're a part of, is pivot really quickly, and we need to pivot to adjust to the way that the industry's changing post-COVID and the way consumers change. Some of the things that we're stepping into right now is green communities. So here in Australia, we're building a green community of 30 homes, all freestanding 4-bedroom double garage homes, net zero, carbon free. So no energy bills ever for each one of those homes. And that's the first time, that'll be the first time that has ever been done. So there's been a few green communities done. Some developers have done some stuff where they've had some, community entitlement on power or sort of controlled sewer work treatment on the site. We've had some other green communities that have been done by some large developers where they've been townhouse developments, but no one's ever done a freestanding, independent title green community where each home is its own title and it's net zero.
Yeah.
I think
so. Watch this space for an announcement.
Yeah, so that's just in the final planning stages.
Yep, awesome.
We're doing the same thing in Atlanta, across 70 sites in Atlanta, in the US. The guys in New Zealand have been doing it for a couple of years.
Yep.
We've taken some learnings from them about the way that they do that over there and the way that their consumers have transitioned into shopping for turnkey homes.
Yeah.
And we're adopting that on a commercial sense. On a corporate sense, for green homes here and green homes in the US. So green communities delivering turnkey homes that are net zero and fully certified and carbon free in operation.
This is the next wave, isn't it? This is the next wave of developments that will come through.
I think it's the next wave for our business and it's the next wave for the building industry. I think consumer risk associated with a building contract, a custom build contract, is not something that consumers are looking for in their abundance like they were. And financial institutions are certainly changing the way that they think about the risk associated with building contracts. So it's much easier to borrow money to buy a turnkey project than it is to build a home over a 12-month period.
Sure.
And
increasingly so.
Absolutely. And I think and that's not going to reverse. And our job for our company is to make sure that those homes are available, that we've got the right designs, that homes are being built in all major growth areas, and that they're sustainable and affordable. So that's the next wave for our business from a new home space.
Got it.
There's some other developing opportunities. The space is evolving dramatically.
Yeah.
But in the new home space, that's our commitment.
Okay. So you've gone from building apprentice through to multinational CEO, if I can say that. You probably don't still see yourself as doing that, but that's where you're at, running a global business. Got international employees, contractors, master franchise arrangements, all sorts of complexity. What's been your key leadership lessons along the way?
I think the fundamental thing is you've got to surround yourself with the right people. And I know everyone says that. And I think that, if I think about everything that I've ever succeeded, I've never done it on my own. Everything everything's a team, everything's a relationship, everything's a partnership. So, whether it's automotive or sport, it's all about the team. And you've got to have the right people. And I think that what I've learnt, thankfully, and I've been obviously able to accept, some people struggle to accept that they need to be part of a team. You need to put the team together. I'm quite comfortable being the leader of that team and accepting the responsibilities that come with that. But I've got a great group of people around me, from the management team to our board, which you're a part of. And I think we set that up in 2014, and that was a phenomenal step for us, or for me, because of all of the collective knowledge that I'd never have access to. Never. You just can't. As one singular person, you just go, even if you're hiring people, you just got to have the right team. So it's about building the right team, having the right team around, and then building the right relationships.
Yep.
And sharing the vision, which we've been able to do with the help of that team very clearly. If everyone in the room is on the same page, visualising the same outcome, committed to the same event, it'll happen.
Yeah.
It will happen.
Yeah.
If everyone's got the same commitment and the same and the goal is clear. I think when we've had situations where the goal isn't clear and we couldn't honestly say that everyone's visualising the same outcome, well then that just the risk increases of not making that achievement.
Totally. Well, you dilute the focus.
Absolutely.
And the resources get spread over too many. Doing less, I think, is good, like having a really short list of priorities. Clarity of vision. I've always admired your transparency. Like, there's no secret squirrel. There's Mick Fabar. This is where I'm at. This is what's going on. I think that level of transparency and integrity and authenticity is important too in leadership.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and that wasn't natural. I think that took a little while to develop. I think from the early days of the advisory board and what was the right information to give them, everything. It is what it is, and let's just deal with what we've got on the table and move forward. And I think trying to focus on just the good stuff, or not the challenging stuff, or not look over the hill. I think that just delays success.
Yep.
So it did take a little while for me to feel comfortable with that transparency, but naturally, I think communication is critical when you're working with a team. Communication is critical. So if you want everyone to dream the same dream, right, to see the same vision, you've got to communicate it well.
Yep.
And I think the only way to communicate that is with transparency.
Yeah.
But I've learnt that, and I've learnt that, and I know that if I do that, that the chances of success increase dramatically. Every project that we've just talked about, everything that we've got on is not without its challenges. Nothing has gone smoothly.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything's gone to plan. Right.
Yeah.
We'll get there in the end, whether it's the opening of our new display centre, or Australia's first freestanding green community, or Global Home of the Year, or whatever it is, or the expansion to the US. We will get there.
Yeah.
But the journey's never a straight line.
Yeah.
And you can't see round corners. But you just got to trust that the team that you've got, and with the right communication and transparency, and all visualising the same outcome, we will get there.
Love it.
And dealing with stuff when it happens, not parking it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Get it
how
done.
do we need to navigate this?
Yeah.
there's been a legislation change, or there's been a funding requirement change, or whatever it is. Right, well, how do we cope with that? What does that mean for what we're doing now and in the near future? And how do we mitigate it, or how do we get it resolved? So
love it.
I've also, I think for me, I don't like stuff to take too long, which is the impatience of Limby. But I like to be able to have short sprints on stuff, get to the end of the week, go, right, that's been dealt with. I don't like leaving the office on a Friday or clocking off on a Friday with stuff that hasn't been dealt with. So
right.
I think fundamentally from if there's, and not everything happens in a week, but if we've got something we need to deal with, or a challenge, or we haven't got a plan around a resolution, or I like to have that done weekly. I gauge that. So that's just me personally, because otherwise stuff just gets lost. It falls through the cracks, and you don't get it dealt with, and you don't come up with a plan. And as you know, something will come up on a Tuesday. We'll have a catch up on the Wednesday. We've got a resolution by or a plan by the Thursday. Yeah, right. That plan mightn't come into action for months or even years, but we need to be able to. We need to put a green tick next to that. We know what we're going to do there. Yeah. So I like to deal with stuff immediately, which allows us to move fast. Yeah. And adapt. And in our industry, in the building industry, you could look at it and say, look, it's the same industry it was in the 50s, but it's not. Stuff's moving very, very rapidly.
It's getting pacey now.
It's getting very pacey. There's a lot of
stuff
changes
going on for sure.
Look, and if you want to be relevant in this game now and moving forward into the 30s,
got to adapt.
You've got to adapt.
Totally.
And that's a message for builders. For builders and for our own team, we've got to adapt.
Definitely.
We've got to look over the hill. We've got to be, which we're doing. Yep. And we've got to make judgment calls based on our history, our knowledge, and what we see coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Clear vision, diligence, action orientated, get stuff done. Transparency, trust, probably the biggest underrated currency in business, I think.
Absolutely.
So surrounding yourself with people who are not only capable but live the same values that you can trust and you're comfortable opening up with, I think is a massive part of success for most leaders, and a lot don't go there. I think that's good.
I think early in my journey, I felt vulnerable. I was very much out of my depth when we started working with the advisory board, which you're the chair of, and very out of my depth. But it didn't take long to realise that once we're all of the same values, that's number one. That's important. Yep. Once we understood the mission and we're all got the same vision on the mission, we've gone on some journeys to get to where we are today. But
it's been a ride.
It's been a hell of a ride. But some things we haven't done because we've decided not to do them. And there's been all sorts of opportunities for global expansion, and we've selected the 3 countries where we're going to focus on. As you know, we could have gone to other countries, and there's been other opportunities, and we just have to park those for a while while we get fundamentally our this stage of the business growth. The business is still a private business, and probably got the potential to be a public listed business at some point. Yeah, that will be a relationship with another company. Sure, but I think fundamentally for success also is the ability to have reliable networks, relationships with external parties, which they take time to build. They don't happen overnight.
100 coffees.
They take time. 100 coffees. Yeah. Well, 1,000 coffees. Yeah. They take time to build, and you've got to build the credibility, and you've got to be able to deliver on what you said you're going to deliver on, and build that transparency. And then when you can build those relationships that are unshakable, when things get tough or there are opportunities come that need to be actioned, you can rely on those partners. And I think that's something that's been a value learning journey for me over the last 10 years.
Great. I love it. You're probably a busy man, lots of stuff going on. I know you get up ridiculously early in the morning, which you and I jest about because it's not my thing. Can you talk a little bit about how do you balance? You have a beautiful family. They're doing well. They're great. So you've obviously invested time in those relationships and done those things whilst you've been crazy busy doing 1,000 other things, whether it's in sport, cars, building businesses and going global and all the rest of it. How do you manage that? How do you manage the challenge of time commitments?
It's not without its challenge, I'll say that. But like most people, family's the most important thing, family and friends. I think sharing my values with my 3 kids has been a major accomplishment, because I've got 3 wonderful kids that now share my values and they're succeeding in their own fields.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I'm quite proud of, me personally, and on behalf of my wife, is that we've been able to raise 3 kids that think outside the box and are goal orientated.
Yep.
And have planned out their future. My eldest daughter bought her first house when she was 20. With
those apples
did it all on her own. She did it all on her
fall
own.
too far from the tree. They're all very different though. They're very different characters, but they've taken those things on board, which is awesome.
My youngest daughter, decided to put herself through. Well, we paid for it, but put herself through into boarding school.
Yep.
To seek a higher education outcome, because she's got goals post her schooling. She's in the final year of school this year, so very driven and it's quite a. I'm proud of how focused she is.
Smart kid.
And our son in the middle's just commencing his sporting career, and his or the next stage of his sporting career, and his carpentry apprenticeship, and just relocated to Sydney, out of home, moved in with a mate. We're helping him on the journey, but he's got a 1 year, a 4 year, and a
big week for him this week.
Big week for him this week, or next week's the real big week. So, real big week. So, how I think back to the question is, they've shared the journey with me. With my wife Sophie's.
So is that time with them that you spend like that? How do you actually do that?
Well, so if it was up to me, and if I was in control of the time, way back when, it wouldn't be anywhere near as successful, because I wouldn't have allocated the time that I needed to, that I now know was so beneficial. Yeah. But from the very early days, there was a couple of rules that Soph mandated. We had dinner at the table every night together.
Love it.
We shared our daily journey or our weekly journey together, the 5 of us, every week. Doesn't matter what's going on. That's what goes down.
Yep.
And if I didn't give the time to that, or I had to, I wasn't available for that. If I was away travelling, which I've needed to be lately, which is understandable. But if I was just like, oh, sorry, I'm still at the gym, or I'm going out with the boys, or I'm going to be in the shed, that was just not acceptable. That's a don't turn up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So mandating those principles, I think, for all of us, and we, even though we've now got 3 kids that have left home, or in the process this week, our son's just leaving home, but one daughter in boarding school and our other daughter, we still every week make time to get together. We still communicate every day, multiple times a day, and we're sharing that journey. I think that's really important. You got to make that time, and if you don't make that time, I think things, for me, things will get out of balance.
Yes, totally agree.
Like I think about work 24/7. I think about where we're going, what we're doing, and what the challenges are, and I share that with our kids, which can be frustrating for them, I think, but that's how I get balance.
I love it. Very similar. I did exactly the same thing and had the same sort of journey, and probably married someone very similar to Soph as well. Where there's that. It sounds like an odd thing to say, but your selection of the life partner and the communication between the two, the commitment to each other, and creating a safe environment at home where there's lots of communication. Family meal at night, a lot of that's dissolved with people watching TV or doing other things, but that point where you all come together, share life together, share the stories, and you're demonstrating the values, I think is an extraordinary key for a lot of leaders that I know. Because a lot of people have been very successful, building a business, doing well financially, but have paid a big price. You've been able to navigate that with a great family that you love and that are committed to you, and you're committed to them, which I think is an extraordinary achievement. And for me personally, I put the success of a family and those relationships and responsibilities we have it's another level above any sort of financial success or building a business.
I agree. I think that for me, it's unconditional that if the wheels fell off at home, and I'm not any different to anyone else. We've had our challenges and
Absolutely.
The same as every other family, right? Whether it's whatever the issues are in the world today, or school, or whatever it are. We've had our disappointments, and
Sure.
We've all had our challenges. But if the wheels fall off at home, if they fall off the family environment, I couldn't operate in this space.
Yeah,
I just couldn't do it. I couldn't.
Yep.
I'm not the type of guy that can just park that stuff and just go to work and go, right, okay, we're gonna do X, Y, Z in Atlanta, or we're going to build green communities in New York. I just couldn't do that.
No.
So I've got to. For me personally, I've got to it's got to be right at home. We've got to make sure the team environment's right at home.
Yeah.
And I think also one of the other challenges that has been challenging is that Sophie and I we've done Green Homes together, right? I'm the front of the brand and the front of the business, and I'm the guy at the front carrying the flag. But certainly behind the scenes, she's put in just as much time as me, and most of the good ideas have come from her. The whole Green Homes idea came from her and her parents. So, and I've always, willingly accepted that. But without her, we wouldn't be where we are today. So,
if I'd known this before, we would have had Soph here. She's obviously the key to success.
Well, she's certainly one of them. But it's challenging, right? I've worked with Soph every day for 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
So in head office, her office is right next to my office.
Yep.
Mixed in with other management team.
Yeah.
As you know, so we work together, and we raise a family together. We live together. It can be challenging. That is not without its challenges, and I don't think that everyone can do that. Not because of it's just that's a tough gig, and at different times it's been really challenging when we've been on a different path, or we've got a different vision. We've got different risk profiles. We've got different tolerance profiles. So that is challenging. And in that space, I'm probably not the greatest communicator. And I take for granted that she'll just swing around to the direction we're heading. But there's been plenty of time when her ideas or her direction, her foresight has saved us from catastrophe, or potential catastrophe.
Yeah.
So it's back to the family dynamics, and it's the same old story. You've got to choose well, right?
Totally.
Your life partner's your life partner.
Marry well.
You've got
That's
to
the
marry
key
well.
takeout.
You've got to marry well. So
can we go to you?
lucky.
You obviously look after yourself physically and things as well in the midst of busyness. What sort of protocols do you have as far as looking after yourself? It's good to look after number one. Then you're available to look after other people. Do you want to give us an insight into some of your life habits or protocols around fitness and things?
Well, it's getting harder. It's certainly it's an interesting thing, the aging process, where your body doesn't respond the way it used to respond. But it's certainly my mind's probably, I think, the sharpest it's ever been. I think mentally I'm as fit and as healthy as I've ever been.
Right.
And my mind's working to its capacity and resolve better than it's ever been. And I think that comes with experience and discipline and training. But physically, I've recently just got over the 50 mark, so a year ago, and I noticed my body's not doing it's not responding the way I need it to respond to different things. So I've got some ingrained injuries that have come through, and but I still follow the same routine. Every day I get up at between 5:30 and 6, depending on what day it is. But I try to get out of bed at 5:30, 500 push-ups every day. I've been doing it all my life.
Yep.
And I still do that, and I don't feel complete. I can't have a coffee unless I do 500 push-ups. And just to be clear, I break that up into 10 sets of 50. I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot.
Yeah.
It takes me about 20 minutes. I do it. I get out of bed. It's a very simple morning routine. But it turns me on. It gets me think. It's right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Ready to
game.
go.
The only day that I don't do that is Sundays. And again, I've been doing it for 30 years. So it's just I've got a journal that I write in, and I know a lot of leaders and people use journals. I don't even call it a journal, but I write the same 10 things. I've been writing the same 10 things for 10 years. I write them just before I go to sleep at night. So I've got one beside my bed, and I've got one in my briefcase. And once I do my push-ups, I have a cup of coffee and I write my things down. And then I try to focus on and what I've learnt, and part of that's come from you, Mark, and obviously Nick and Sally and my wife and other people around me that are much more holistic thinkers than I was. A bit of gratitude. So just, let's take it for what it is. We're, the pressure's on, but we're just building homes, right? We're not saving lives here. We're not surgeons. We're not restoring sight to people. We're just building homes. Everything's manageable. So just put things in perspective about what we've got to do, but just every day, the 10 goals. Where am I heading? What are we doing? And making sure that I'm clear with my goals and what my mind needs to think about. I'm very much a believer that what you think about, you become, and the people you become the person that you surround yourself with. So I didn't know that when I was young. So I didn't appreciate that. Even though my father tried to instill that in me, I didn't appreciate that. So I'm a huge believer and convinced that you are what you become the common denominator of the people you associate with. So I try to associate with people that are of good values, have got the same vision as me, they've got the same ethics, whether it's family values, life values, business values. I've got very little time for people that aren't good people. I believe in karma. I believe that the world operates in that space. So do good things, be a good person, and surround yourself with good people. Fundamentally, you've got to get that right first.
Right.
Sounds a bit, I know how that would be perceived, but that's the journey that I've been on. So, and that wasn't what I was like when I was a teenager or in my early 20s. I wouldn't have even thought that had any impact.
Yeah.
So my daily routine is, out of bed early before, the sun really comes up. Get the push-ups done. Have a coffee. Get my 10 things down. I've been writing the same thing for the last 10 years. I run 2 diaries and just for that purpose.
Yeah.
And I look back just recently at the end of last year. I look back to the ones 10 years ago, and there's some slight changes in my 10 things. But so I think getting your subconscious mind in tune with your conscious mind is really important. So
that alignment, that's
making
really
sure they're aligned and where both sides of my brain are thinking the same.
Yeah.
Why are we here? What are we doing? And what's our purpose? And what's our goal?
And what we say, I think, is the alignment of subconscious, conscious, and what we're physically saying, I think is very important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we put out there, right? We've got to make sure that what comes out of our mouths is positive, and fulfilling and plays a role in one of the 10 things or the 5 things or whatever that is that you've got. So
Love it.
So I've been doing that. I've unsuccessfully tried to get my kids to adopt those habits.
Yeah.
I haven't been successful as yet, but
you've been working on me for 10 years.
I have.
On that as well. So I am getting up earlier. You'll be glad to know. Not Mick hour, but I am earlier.
We've had a
Going
few
to bed
early
earlier.
meetings, which is way before your wake-up time, which I've been
couple of
surprised
coffees.
at. It's great.
Couple of coffees beforehand helps me.
Yep.
But I've added a whole bunch. I've been on a bit of a wellness health span journey since I turned 60. And that's part of that's been the protocols in the morning and getting disciplined around some of those things, not dissimilar to what you're doing, except the knock 500 push-ups.
It's just for me, it's so important. Like it just I just find it so fulfilling to be able to get that done, despite whatever's going on in the day.
Yeah.
Whatever challenges I've got that day.
Yeah. Onto it.
You've got to get up and face it.
Yeah.
So
I think there's definitely a connection between physical exertion and mental agility and sustainability. Like the connection between mental and physical, I think, is pretty profound. So if you're looking after your body, it actually helps your mind.
100%. There's no doubt about that. And I, as I said, I've recently turned 51 a few weeks ago, and some of the things the goals that I had that now probably seem a bit beyond my body's capabilities. I've wanted to run a marathon before I was 50. Never got to do it, and I'm not sure that my knees will hold up to it after doing thousands and thousands and thousands of Ks on the road.
Yeah.
I've just had a knee surgery not that long ago. I was told that I'd have to have 2 new knees before I was in the next 5 to 6 years, and the realisation of the my body's changing. I'm not the greatest in managing my calorie intake, so I've just never really focused on that, and I've never really needed to.
Yeah.
So it was all right, but maybe now I need to, because I know that it not only is my body changing the way that it fundamentally operates from a physical point of view, from a mental point of view, it changes. And I know that if I start the day well and I get all of those things done in the first 30 minutes of my day, my day will be a lot better. I know that if I don't do that, and there's been days that I've skipped and I haven't done that, I'm just not as productive. I'm not on point. And I think with any business leader, you've got to be on point. You've got to be clear and on point. If you're not on point, you're wasting time.
That's the game, isn't it? Really, it's you have to be on your A game all the time.
Every day.
Yeah.
You've got to be. There's no. You can't. I mean, you're going to have B and C grade days, but if you're not an A grade player, you can't lead a team of people.
No.
Or you can't expect them to follow you, right?
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a leader. I just consider myself as the person that's holding the flag with a team of people that all share the same vision. But if I'm the flag holder, I've got to be on my game.
That makes you a leader, by the way.
Just obviously. But that's not how it's said.
But no, I agree. I think often leaders get so busy, they don't invest in themselves, or they're quite altruistic and they feel like they should be serving rather than looking after themselves. Absolutely locking into your diary, whether it's early in the day or whatever it might be, times of wide space, time to contemplate, good exercise, right nutrition, investing in relationships. All those things make you a better leader because you're investing in what seems to be yourself, which is actually not selfish.
Yeah, I think that profoundly, I've got to a point in my life, which just recently, where you just go, okay, I need to achieve this by this point. Yeah, because I've got other plans, or I'm going to run out of time. That's we don't want to be that whole story about I worked all my life and then retired at 70 and then or 75 and then I was too old to do anything. I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do because I was just incapable. I certainly don't want to be at that point. And I think one of my weaknesses is being too focused on not being able to adapt. So from not on the everyday operational stuff, but relentless. You've got to be relentless on the vision, right?
Totally.
Any leader, if you want to achieve serious success, you've got to be relentless on the vision. There's no doubt about that. I think my inability to be accept that sometimes we need to. There's other things that need to be shuffled and come. I'm not very good at that. It's like no, this is how it's going to happen. We're going to do it in this order, and we're going to achieve it in this order. But for whatever reason, that's not the case because of policy change or fundamental change or the environment or whatever. I find it hard to adapt. Once I lock into a goal and a vision, and once I lock into it, I'm 100% on it. And that can be good, but it can also be challenging. And I think that's very hard for Soph because I get so focused that doesn't matter. Nothing can get in the way. Family's obviously family time. I'm not talking about that. But, I mean, as a holistic view of about where we're going and what we're doing, from a business point of view, you've got to be on point.
I think that's particularly true when you're being innovative, carving out something new, which is really you've created a whole new market here or ability to deliver that. That's the pointy end of the spear. That gets all the resistance and the challenges because it's new. So that's good. Mick, let's move to talk a little bit more about the industry itself. There is so much going on, particularly in Australia at the moment, around government wanting to build 1.2 million homes by next Tuesday, but the whole industry struggling to even operate. What's happening in the building industry right now?
Look, the building industry is broken. We've got a housing crisis that is evolving and exponentially expanding. We've got affordability issues. and we've got fundamental issues in the industry that are completely preventing the industry from growing and achieving what it needs to achieve. I think, if I focus in on a couple of things, I think that one of the issues that we've got from builders' point of view is the financial capacity that is relating in Australia to builders and home warranty. Home warranty is a broken system.
Yeah.
So it's a very limiting system. It doesn't allow builders to scale. It's done a very, very good job at keeping bad builders from getting too much work on. It's done that well.
Yeah.
But there's not many of those guys in the industry. To run a building business today and be relevant, you've got to be really a good operator. But the industry, the way that the red tape and the home warranty is set up at the moment, there's no new builders coming through. They just can't meet the mark. And why would they? If a consumer understood what it took to hold a builder's license, and to hold a builder's license, you've got to have homeowners warranty eligibility and insurance capacity for each home. If a consumer understood what was involved for a builder to do that, they would appreciate why no new builders are coming through. So that part of the industry is broken.
It does definitely caps productivity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no way they'll achieve, the government will achieve, or society will achieve the homes that they want to. Not only have we not got the workers, we haven't got the tradespeople, we haven't got builders haven't got the capacity from an insurance capacity. Before we even get to financial capacity, they haven't got the insurance capacity to do it. So the way the industry is being driven, the big guys are getting bigger and the small guys are just getting made redundant. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
It's just the transition the industry's in. The red tape, the red tape around getting houses approved and getting them built, should be pretty simple.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about that, because I think that is something that seems to be on the mind of government. They say they're reducing complexity, reducing red tape. Is that actually happening?
I haven't seen any results or positive effects where they've reduced that. They've, like every industry, they've moved to online platforms and submission platforms. It's a nightmare. I think average DA and CC approvals now are plus 6 months. And if you think about a builder, right, and a consumer, they're both in the same boat. They're doing a quote today, January. They're doing a quote to build a home. They take that to the bank. They get that approved, and then they go through an application process to get that home approved. That's if the land's available. But the land might be also delayed through registration and so forth. It's not uncommon for that home to be delayed for the construction to start December this year, 12 months, 8, 9 months, 18 months. That's not uncommon today.
When it takes longer to plan and get things approved than it actually takes to build, something is fundamentally wrong with the system.
100%. And then when you think about the fixed price quote that builder had to give that consumer, so the lender would loan the money because they want fixed price contracts, is that going to be relevant in 12 months? And that's what we saw in COVID, that we saw a 30% increase in costs of homes, which has been well documented, where builders had locked into fixed price quotes because that's how the industry works, and then prices had gone up, and the builder had only they're below the line by 20% or 30%.
Yeah.
So that's how builders went broke. Look, there were some negligent operators in there too. We had builders, spending money that, we're dealing with large sums of money, and this is what's frustrating about builders is that they need commercial training to run. We're dealing with builders with sometimes millions of dollars in their trading account.
Yeah.
Right. So if you don't have good fundamental financial fiscal policy in your business and training and support, as we see builders and contractors buying speedboats and going on holidays, and the next job's paying for the other job, and it just ends it's a cycle.
Yeah. It's
never been any different, but it's worse now than it's ever been. And red tape, delays in construction approvals is 100% compounding the problem.
Yeah.
From the apprentices coming through, there's just no apprentices. We've got fundamental issues from the next generation of builders.
So labour shortages are a challenge for the kind of capacity we're talking about.
Well, today the figure that I've been using for some time, and I heard it from one of the industry leaders, is that 60% of the trades are doing 100% of the work. That's where we're at. We've been there for a couple of years.
Right.
So, and we don't have any new trades coming through. We've got builders that are leaving the industry, like licensed builders. You need a licensed builder to build a home. We've got it's an ageing occupation, problem number one. We've got builders leaving the industry because it's becoming too costly and too complex and too risky for them to operate. Problem number two. We've got no new contractors, carpenters, tilers, plumbers coming through because there's no incentive for them to do it. One, the cultures are different. They don't want to do that work. Back in the 90s and the 80s when I went through, or I went through in the 90s, there were guys, people were screaming for apprenticeships. We're not seeing any of that.
No.
So, and there's no incentives from the government. I mean, there's on the news this morning they're talking about some, but it's not nearly enough to incentivise young people to want to take up a trade.
Yeah. So so labour challenges, no doubt. People not coming into the industry. The cost escalation, and I know part of that's driven by just the time it takes to actually get things done and fixed price contracts. Banks' valuation of new properties to build compared to existing stock?
The gap's never been bigger. It's absolutely frustrating. So values are all just tin plating their backsides. And they give low values so they're never at risk if the client falls over and the home's got to be sold in a fire sale, which rarely happens really. But banks' ability to understand the true cost of construction today, completely, they're living 5 years in the past. The gap's never been bigger. Yeah. It's a fundamental problem.
It's a very challenge unless you're very fiscally, unless you've got big deposits or you're paying cash or small mortgage. It becomes a big issue. There's a lot of chat in the industry about green loans. Where are we at with that?
So it's been an evolving space, the green loan space, which is very exciting and should be, it could be seen as one of the saviours to the industry. And so where we're at with green loans is there's green loans now nearly delivered by all of the majors and most of the minor lenders, and those loans they have a different framework than a traditional home loan. And fundamentally, the interest rate's cheaper, so the mortgage rate's cheaper because the cost of the money where that's coming from is at a lower rate for the lender. Yeah. The valuation of the property, because it's a green property, is higher, which improves the LVR. And we're seeing, just on our numbers alone, we're seeing that some of the mortgages on an average home, it's over the life of a loan, hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings for the client.
Yeah.
Like $500,000 savings on the cost of the loan over the term of the loan, which is significant, right?
So it should lower the risk for banks then.
Absolutely, it should lower the risk for banks. They get an improved stock, a better asset value. The client gets a better home. They're getting it's having a positive impact on their cost of living because you're reducing their cost of the cost to live in their home, whether you're reducing the energy or whatever that cost is, water, and the cost of the mortgage, the weekly cost. So we've now got loans in the market that are 100 points better, 100 basis points better, which is 1%.
Right, good to see.
Which is great, which is significant.
Yeah. And do you think, I know there's been some issues around the complexity to qualify and apply. Is that still the case or is that simplifying?
With some loans, the complexity, they went out hard with the complexity and they made it so complex that some of them. Well, there was a major bank that we met with a couple of years ago, and when we listened to their what the criteria of the green home was, it was we weren't even doing that stuff. No. They made it so difficult that they were never going to write a loan. But they've tailored that right back. So a couple of institutions we're working with at the moment just made it really simple, like energy neutral or 7.5 stars on the NATHERS energy assessment.
Yeah,
and it's a green home, and that's really. Fundamentally, that's a fundamental benchmark we accept.
So standards now, isn't it?
That's right.
What about the consumers in this? What are they expecting from builders?
Well, they expect a lot. Consumers are expecting an outcome. Certainly, the consumers that we're talking to, the consumers that are communicating with us, and the thousands of consumers that are having conversations with our teams on our websites, just want energy efficient, healthy homes. Consumers have accepted quite broadly that they expect an energy efficient home. Where the gap is that most builders and designers don't even think like that. So when a designer or a builder plans a home or comes up with a design range, the first thing they think about is the code, the setback from the road, the things like the garage must face the street, the front door's got to face the street, all those sorts of things, right? Then we've got the code basics requirements that's got to be planned out. So, how many windows can you have in a room and privacy issues, that sort of stuff. There's very little, if any, focus on the energy efficiency of a home. So how does the home perform from an energy efficiency perspective? What's the home's energy leakage? So air out of the home. What's it leaking? We don't even have a code for that. In Europe, they get tested for that.
Yeah,
we don't even consider that here. So we've got designers and builders that don't energy efficiency and health and comfort, orientation, all those things are not even part of the consideration. That's how you end up with energy efficient homes where they're just non-performing. Then we've got major builders that promote the same design in all parts of the country. Well, that just can't, fundamentally that can't work. It can work, you can live in the home, but fundamentally it can't work from a sustainability perspective. How a home performs in one climate zone and how it performs in another climate zone will be completely different.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did at Green Homes that was a 12-month body of work that was really, really important was we've now got over 100, but we set about getting all of our designs pre-modelled in all 6 climate zones in the country on 4 different orientations.
Right.
So what changes did we have to make to a particular design to build it in that climate as opposed to this climate facing due west?
Yeah.
How does it work?
No one else has done that, have they? That's pretty unique.
No. So we spent 12 months on that. It was a major, major investment for us. I can say now that we've got over 100 designs that are pre-modelled above the 7-star benchmark. Quite a lot of them are energy neutral.
Yeah.
In all 6 climate zones in Australia on 4 different orientations in each of those climate zones. So the modelling work that went into making sure those designs are energy efficient is extensive, and I think we got to a point where we had to do that to say, because our homes, sometimes our homes and some of our homes didn't look any different to because that's what people wanted. They don't want to stand out. They don't want a home that looks modern, contemporary. They just want a standard looking home. They don't want to have anything that stands out in the street, but they want it energy efficient. And then there was a question, well, how is that home energy efficient? Yeah, absolutely. This is how the modelling works.
Yeah.
So fundamental things like orientation, window placement, energy leakage, comfort levels. Volume of space, breezeways, cross ventilation, simple things that you have to know well, that you can't pick up unless you know what you're looking at.
This is the paradox, I think. We've got fundamentally government is saying we need to be more energy efficient, green, and do those things well, sustainable. Consumers, there's a large group of consumers who value those things and they get a better experience, better asset, etc. Yet the industry itself seems to be very slow in adopting, or it's all too hard, or it's going to be very expensive, we want to delay it. And yet there's star rating legislation that's in or coming in various states. Do you think it's going to take a while for the industry to catch up?
Yeah, I think the industry, that movement, the green movement, is always, the headwinds will always be the industry because of the culture and the thinking that's within the industry. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. And I'm okay with that because we just operate we're just in the corner playing in our sandpit doing our thing.
Yeah.
We understand that space very, very well. That's what we do. And we've built hundreds and hundreds, thousands of sustainable energy efficient homes. We've built the most sustainable, highest rated home in Australia. We've done the same in New Zealand. We've done the same in the US. So we understand that space really well, and I can tell you, as you know, because you've got intimate knowledge, that it's affordable. It's not overly difficult, but you just got to have the right designs, understand the principles, have the right designs, and go to the right builder. And that's where our success has come from. It's not because we've come up with any revolutionised the world or come up with some unique plan that we can say that's completely different, or some new technology. Yeah, it's just we understand how to design and build an energy efficient home. Yeah,
and we've done it at an accessible price point, which I think is a huge key. So what do you think the future for the industry is? Do you think, ultimately we're going to have to go down this track if consumers are going, if legislation's going, the industry's at some point is going to have to transition?
Yeah, look, I think the world generally is very committed to low carbon homes. So our homes are our biggest carbon producers. I know that doesn't mean a lot for people. For consumers, the carbon isn't the thing that they talk about, but it's directly tied to energy efficiency, performance, and comfort.
Yeah.
So carbon's the big elephant that we've got to get rid of, right? So we're building
carbon reduction and energy efficiency. What's more important around those two things? Do you want to give us some clarity?
Well, they're hand in hand.
Okay.
They come in. Energy efficiency brings carbon efficiency.
Yeah.
So energy efficiency brings carbon reduction. So the reality is that the homes that we're building are energy efficient, and the majority of them are energy neutral. So they don't need any. We reduce the energy by around 70% just by clever design and building practices. Right. That's challenge number one. Get the energy use of the home down. Well, you can't bolt this stuff on, right?
Yeah.
So the other fundamental problem in the environment is that people are of a belief that you can just build a terrible home and just make it energy efficient later. We'll just, when we've got more money, we'll swap it out with higher grade appliances, or we'll do the upgrades, energy efficiency upgrades. That's flawed thinking. The first thing you've got to do is design the home and build the home that is energy efficiency on its own before you even get to the appliances and the where the energy comes from. So we've got a demonstration home that we've built in a cool climate on our website. We display the data, live data, reported, third-party checked by a university. That home is performing at around about 72% energy reduction in comparison to CSIRO data of a standard home in the same location. It's phenomenal.
That's a game changer.
Game changer, and it was a really affordable per square metre home to build. Then the energy that it does use, so the 30% energy that it does use to help it perform, we get that from a solar system and a battery.
Yeah.
So the home's off grid. It's connected to the grid, but it's effectively it's working as an off grid home. The home produces about 140% of the energy that it needs for the year. So we've just gone through. It's in a cold climate. We've just gone through winter where it was, it's an all electric home with heating and cooling required, heating required through winter.
Yeah.
And there was no load on the grid. That home by default is a energy neutral home, and that home, therefore, it's a carbon free home. It's not producing carbon in operation.
Right.
So we've deliberately stayed away from the whole embodied carbon discussion and carbon within the materials that when they're fabricated, and what was their transport mechanism to the site, and did they come across the Pacific on a diesel boat, or we can't control that stuff.
Yep.
And consumers aren't worried about that either. What consumers want to know is, from our experience, and we've got extensive experience in these discussions, is that they want to know, how is the home going to operate when I'm living in it?
Yes.
Right? I don't care what power you use when you build it. I don't care where what power the factory used
post-construction.
What happens when I live in it? How's it going to change my life? How's my family going to feel when they live in this home, or my grandparents, or whatever it is? So we focus on that point. So you've got to get the design right and the construction process right, and choose the right materials and do all that stuff right. You get that right, then at the point where you hand it over to the consumer, you're handing over a home that's got a dramatically improved energy performance, to energy neutral if we get it that far, and
they feel different too, don't they?
Oh, they're completely different.
You can walk into it and you know.
100%. That's why we love building homes in display villages.
It's hard to describe.
Yeah. Have you been in any other home? This is very egotistic comment, but just I'd love to be able to stand at the home before you come in our home. Go and visit everyone else's first.
Yeah.
Get a feel for those homes, and then come in here and have a look.
Yeah. It's definitely tangible. It's a physical experience, which is hard to describe unless you've
been in
one.
I don't know any client that we've built a home for that would then not build a green home as another home.
Yeah.
Once you've lived in one, myself included,
you're not going to go back.
There's no going back.
No. So you touched on the whole carbon reduction piece. The government seems very fixated on the carbon equation. Is that a good thing, or is that a challenge?
I think, carbon. I call the carbon is the boat anchor to the green money. So the green money, all green money has a direct link to carbon reduction. So green home loans and green funding and ESG funding, all of that stuff is the whole reason that stuff that exists is to reduce carbon. So while the carbon reduction of a home's performance isn't directly in the line of sight for a consumer. It's definitely in the line of sight for government and funding organisations. So importantly, we've got to be able to show that our homes have a significant carbon reduction.
Well, the new legislation that's coming, 100 million plus companies, is going to follow the same sort of framework as the Modern Slavery Act. Is you basically have to understand what your carbon footprint is for you, your suppliers, and your consumers.
It'll be challenging.
Well, I think everyone's saying the same thing, like, how is that even possible? I'm sure it'll get modified to some degree, but essentially the government's going, we need to know, and you need to know. And that's going to, I think the refinement rate it'll halve every year. So it'll be 50 million or 100 team of 100 people, then it's sort of compulsory. So it'll follow the same as the smaller and smaller companies are going to have to become more and more aware of their carbon footprint. And
I think that's just going to drive the whole space. People don't realise what's coming.
Yep.
This, in some sense, this legislation and thinking has been around for a long time. It's been a long time coming, but it's sneaking up on a lot of industry and a lot of people. So for us, we're well and truly in that space. With our product, we know exactly what we're doing.
Totally.
And we're the only ones doing it, which is great. And we invite more people to the party, more builders and partners and product partners as the company and the brand expand. But this is coming, and we've been watching this come for some time. We've been talking about the legislation changes for the last 10 years in our board meetings.
Yeah.
I think it's never been so real as what it is right now. Stuff's really happening. So we've got legislation changes, we've got green loans, multiple green loans. The last fourth quarter of last year got released. Like, there's just stuff's moving faster than even the financial institutions recognise.
Some of those green loans are aimed at people retrofitting existing houses with electrification. What are the sort of options for people who have an imperfect house as far as green credentials, but they want to sort of upgrade sustainability? There's green loans around.
Yeah, so there's green renovation loans available, which are really where the financial institutions are focusing their efforts at the moment. And that's a whole space that's just about to explode. And we've been getting ready or preparing for that space for the last 2 years. Fundamentally, this is what it looks like, is that, really we got to understand it really well in America. And in America, the DOE recognised that there was 100 million existing homes with another 30 to 50 years of life that were completely inefficient.
Yeah, carbon monsters.
They're inefficient. They're emitting carbon to into the universe, and without addressing that problem for those existing homes, the situation wasn't going to resolve itself. It's exactly the same here in Australia. The same thing's happening. So we've got existing homes that are completely inefficient, that were built 30, 40 years ago. They've got another 30, 40 years of life or more that are completely inefficient and carbon monsters and unhealthy homes, right? So the idea of the green home upgrade solution is what we call it. The green home upgrade solution is that there's money available, loans available, and incentives and from government and so forth to upgrade a home, buy a home and do a renovation, or renovate an existing home and reduce its carbon load and help it be more efficient. We're just about to step into that space on a national footprint. I think fundamentally where it's been trialled, the problem is at the delivery component. So we've got, in different trials, we've got the money's been made available, or the incentives have been made available, and it's still up to the consumer or a broker to go out and find contractors to do the work.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. So when we've got a situation where we've got an under-resourced industry from contractor perspective now, it's not going to work when you're relying on multiple contractors to come to a project and get that done, right? So our approach to that has been, or is at the moment, we're just about to roll out a delivery footprint Australia-wide. In the next couple of months, Australia-wide. So we'll be able to service every single area in Australia bar one or two regional pockets. We'll have 21 different upgrades available. I think it's at 21 at the moment. So 21 different packages of upgrades available to an existing home to make it all electric, with a 6-week delivery guarantee timeframe on those deliverables, and carbon reporting and energy efficiency already done for each package for a home in that location. So effectively,
and unique.
I want it absolutely. So we're going to fix the whole problem from we're going to deliver the packages, confirm and guarantee the delivery and the install, and then provide the reporting. We're only about a month away, 2 months away, I reckon, from making that announcement. But and we've got capacity to do thousands of upgrades, from just swapping out gas cooktops to electric, to full refits of existing homes with electrification upgrades and window upgrades and solar install. And so we will be presenting a one-stop shop where they'll be able to select initially from 21 packages, pre-priced, guaranteed time frame, fully reported.
Phenomenal.
Again, that's where the market's at. That's what the market needs. That's what everyone's screaming for. So we saw an opportunity. We're going to deliver it.
Yeah, and it's moving fast, and a unique national offering. So I think it's a phenomenal initiative.
We've got a national partner, which has got
scale,
national ability to deliver that product under our brand. We've got the relationships at the lender level, at government level, at broker level and industry level.
Yep.
So we're going to pull all of those things together and set a platform up for consumers, brokers, agents, whatever, to be able to say, this home needs this upgrade, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And effectively, consumers should be able to, they might be able to refinance their home or buy an existing home, do an upgrade, have a green certification completed, and meet the green loan criteria, get a lower interest rate, a higher product value. That's what everyone wants, right?
We want low interest rate and an energy efficient home. And what's not to like about that?
Yeah.
And the fact we'll be able to deliver that on a national level, I think, is an extraordinary opportunity.
Look, national from day one. So we've been working very, very hard with our delivery partners on that over more than a 12-month period.
Yeah.
We've come back to a previous comment about having the right networks and trust and vision from your partners, and no one can do this alone, right?
No, that's right.
No one company can do this. It's got to be an alignment. It's got to be a joint venture, merger, partnership.
Yeah, bringing together a complex ecosystem of people. Right. But no, it's looking good from my perspective. I think it's great.
It's looking really good, and I'm really excited about the positive effect that we can make nationally on the housing stock.
Yeah, for sure. Mick, last question about the industry. Is there anything that the industry should be talking about that is not?
Well, look, I think they're doing a lot of talking. The better question would be, what should they be actioning? I think that for Australia, we need to be actioning two things to critically resolve. Instead of dancing around it, we need to deal with the red tape problem.
Yeah.
We need to deal with that problem urgently, and there's a fundamental delivery problem at local levels. So something needs to change. So much
complexity with the number of organisations involved. I know that they're really trying to, particularly around the large-scale development, trying to go from 20 different entities to basically one body that'll help fast-track things. Risks, obviously, in that.
Yep.
But hopefully they will that will trickle down to just breaking down some of the incredible time and frustration that it takes to actually get anything done.
Well, that's fundamentally time's money, right? So you can't have builders signing contracts and then not digging holes on site for 12 months. You just can't have that.
Yep.
That ends badly for builders, consumers, lenders, everyone. So, and that fundamentally across the industry, that's what we've got at the moment.
Yep. Everybody wants this. Everybody, all those stakeholders want it. It's just a matter of are they willing to go after the bureaucracy?
Well, the government's got to make the change because that particular problem is government.
Yeah.
From local to state to federal.
Yeah.
So they're all involved, and they've got to stop talking and start doing. There's been plenty of talk, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and none of it's happening.
Yeah.
They've made some changes, some portal changes and some implementations that we've got that's increased the red tape or sent the timeframes backwards. We've got people working in roles at planning stage that have been in roles for 20 years and completely inefficient. They need to be put into retirement or held accountable for their deliverables. That's fundamental. What builders are. That's from a builder level what we're seeing. I think that's going to change. We've got to supercharge the next generation of the industry, or there'll be no one building houses in the 30s.
Absolutely.
There'll be no builders.
Absolutely.
Right? We don't want to end up in a situation where we've got all the buildings happening with 5 majors and all of the contractors work for 5 majors.
Yeah.
We can't have that situation.
Which is kind of where we're heading.
That is absolutely where we're heading. And, being a national builder, being a global builder, you would think that I would support that. We need all different levels of builders. We need everyone to have a piece of the pie and be successful and be scalable and sustainable.
Yeah.
We're heading in a direction where it's just going to be an amalgamated space where there's going to be 5, 10 builders at the top of the tree, and they control all the land and they control all the building. If you want to build a new house, you've got to deal with one of these guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a space we need to be in, and that's where it's heading. So we've got to supercharge the next generation of contractors. I know firsthand at the moment, and I hadn't looked at it for a while because we haven't put an apprentice through. Not operating as a builder, I'm operating the group. I wasn't aware that just how poor the incentives are from government and the wages for apprentices. There's no wonder why we're not getting apprentices. When a first year carpenter apprentice with all of everything that they can earn is just above $600 a week.
Yeah.
You can't even live on that money.
Can't do it in Sydney,
Right?
certainly.
You certainly can't do it in the major areas.
Yeah.
With all that's including all the incentives that they get in that wage. So we've got to fix that problem. And again, government need to stop talking and start doing.
Yeah.
They need to stop promising for these things for election votes. They need to start delivering. Someone's got to get off their backside and go, right, if we don't fix this, in 10 years' time, not only are we not going to build these hundreds of thousands of homes that we're short right now, there'll be no builders in the 30s.
Yeah.
The other thing they've got to fix is the home warranty. They've got to fix that.
Yeah.
We've got to have a much simpler solution where we can hold where the risk – I'm not saying reduce the risk or increase the risk for consumers.
Yes.
I'm not saying that at all. Consumers need to have risk mitigation insurance against negligent builders.
Yes.
And we're never not going to have negligent builders. We've got builders out there that are poor operators, poor communicators, run negligent businesses and shouldn't be builders. That's just the space that we're in. We've got a small minority of those builders. But what's set up at the moment to control those guys is impacting poorly or heavily on the rest of the network. If we don't fix that problem, if government don't sort out the home warranty challenges, it's at the moment the way it stands, certainly in New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria and Western Australia, it is not possible to build a scalable, profitable, sustainable business with the home warranty the way it is. So we've got builders that enter the space, they're in it for 3 or 4 years, 5 years and they're out.
Wow.
Or they're not profitable and sustainable. They're operating below the line. We need builders to be profitable and sustainable. We need builders in the industry getting their builder's license in their late 20s and 30s and doing 20 years and building a couple of hundred homes. That's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
On scale. We can't do that now because the insurance capacity benchmarks are insurmountable for those builders. Again, the big guys just get bigger because they're on unlimited insurance, and they just get bigger and they control the space. We don't want that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying we need independent builders. We need mum and dad builders. We need the guys doing in regional centres that can do 5, 10 homes a year comfortably and profitably. We don't need guys. We don't need a situation where builders have got to put their own homes. If they want to do $2 million worth of work, they've got to put $1 million worth of assets on the line to do that work. That's not sustainable.
Can't do it.
You can't. They don't do it in any other industry.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in this industry, and it's preventing the growth. And the bureaucrats aren't looking at it closely enough to understand what the challenges are. They're not focused on the 80% of the builders in this country. They're not focused on how we're going to get those guys going. Why have we got builders leaving the industry? Why have we got builders that are unprofitable? Because we've made the red tape, the delays, and the insurance, which are all fundamental issues in the hands of the government.
Yeah.
We've made them so insurmountable that builders can't stay profitable.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
And I can't see it changing anytime soon. I'm passionate about it because it annoys me so much. But and I see good builders leaving the industry or not building at all, and that's a shame.
It is a shame. Mick, kind of finishing on a slightly sour note there, but if anybody wants to connect with you, Green Homes, go greenhomesaustralia.com. so builders can connect in through their consumers can look at the product, and maybe some bureaucrats with a change of heart might want to have a look and a connect with you at some point.
Yeah, just jump on the website and contact our office, and I'm more than happy to discuss any of those issues or challenges with anyone in the industry. I'm all about moving the industry forward, and obviously growing our brand and our business. We've got a vision and a goal, but we need the industry to be strong. We need the industry to be stable. We need other builders to be viable, stable, profitable, sustainable. We need all that. So
and set up for the next generation.
Absolutely, we need the next generation. Or I think this illusion that we'll be printing homes, that's not going to happen anytime soon. That comes with a whole heap of challenges. The way that we build homes today, fundamentally, the journey of the consumer and the journey of the builder is the same as what it's been the last 50 or 60 years, and it's probably not going to change. I'm not saying that we can't build sustainable homes. It's exactly what we can build, but the way that we do them and the processes that we follow, that's the way the industry works. We can't rely on the industry changing its process to fix these problems. These problems have got to be fixed. But anyway, we'll be around for a while, so
we will be.
We've got a lot of great things happening, and I look forward to sharing that with the communities.
Awesome. So we'll put all those links in down below, so people can connect with us if they'd like to do that. Mick, absolutely thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for taking the time and coming down.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here, and I love our conversations as well. Hope if we could only just solve the problems of the world and implement them straight away, it'd be much better.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? What?
Thanks, Mick. Great to see you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for joining us at the Lead Well, Live Well vodcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you want to know more about what we're all about, you can find us at leadwelllivewell.com.au.